Welcome to Forum 360. I'm your host, Leah Love, and today we have Miss Brandi Davis, who is the principal of the I Promise School. Today we are so excited because we are going to talk about a promise kept. Thank you, Miss Brandi.
Thanks for having me.
So let's talk about how you even got on this journey. What brought you into education?
Well, I am a product of the Akron Public Schools, and my high school English teacher really made a huge impact on me. Her name is Dorothy Brown, and she just was really real and authentic with us as students. She treated us like she would her own children, and she made learning fun and interesting, and she related it to what was going on with us at school. So when I attended the University of Akron, I initially was going to be a physical therapist, but I just didn't feel passionate about it. Mm-hmm. So I took a step back and I had a conversation with her, and always a conversation with my mom. And I said, I think I want to be an English teacher. English was my favorite subject in school. And, leaning on Mrs. Brown as, that role model as far as educators. And I hit the ground running as far as being an educator. So I graduated and I became an English teacher at Central Howard High School way back in 1999. So that is where my educational journey started. I have my support. My godmom, Marilyn White, supported me along the way. She was a school counselor. So, just having those integral pieces in my life. And, I often refer to my mother, Linda Davis. She wasn't in education, but, just her support and her realness, keeping me on track, encouraged me that, education was the path for me to take.
So what made you stand out to get this amazing opportunity?
So back in 2011, that was my first year as a building principal. And I was at a principal's meeting, and members from the Lebron James Family Foundation came to a principal's meeting, and they were starting the Lebron Advisory Board for educators. They wanted to make their programming more robust. They said, we are not the educator experts. We need someone to help us with our after-school programming and supporting at-risk students in the Akron Public Schools. So they asked for volunteers, and I raised my hand. Mm-hmm. So, fast forward a couple years, I sat on different committees and supported the foundation and the Akron Public Schools in guiding what was deemed appropriate and supportive for our at-risk students in Akron. So then the programming became more detailed, and at that time the Wheels for Education program was spread across 28 different elementary schools, 27 different elementary schools, and the idea was to provide a more focused, intensive support for at-risk students. So then the notion of the I Promise School was brought to the table. So I was pulled from my building at Schumacher, and I was placed on principal on special assignment. Okay. So during that year, I went up and down the Eastern Seaboard, visiting different schools, looking at different programs, and I worked with 5 different design teams that were comprised of members from the Akron Public Schools, Lebron James Family Foundation, also community members as well, just so that we could, realize this vision of LeBron of serving or creating a school that would serve at-risk students in his hometown.
Let me interrupt you. Mm-hmm. At-risk, define what at-risk means for those who may not know what that is.
At-risk students, they're basically, I don't want to say basically, they're students who are struggling academically. They may be struggling socially, emotionally. and also economically. So you factor in all of those areas, and those students are considered to be at risk. And if you look at the Akron Public School system, 90% of our students are considered to be at risk.
Really?
Yes.
That's an interesting statistic I didn't know. Okay, so you went and you comprised and created this full program that you wanted. So what made you decide the different concepts that you decided to take with you and create the school with, and what are those concepts that are different?
So with the different design teams and with our leadership teams, we just sat down and we looked at what would be like our pie in the sky ideas that we would feel would make a successful urban public school. So we settled on 3 foundational principles. They are STEM-infused curriculum, trauma-informed services, and family wraparound supports. Those are the 3 components that we feel, those are the secret sauce we feel of what's going to make a successful urban public school setting. Focusing on STEM, at-risk students, or all students really, learn best through hands-on, real, authentic learning environments. Making learning so that they can equate it to everyday real life. You know, helping students understand how does my learning in the classroom relate to what's going on in my community. And making it engaging and real for them. So that's like a STEM-infused curriculum. We are a STEM designated school by the state. Our second component is trauma-informed services. We know that in an urban public school setting, students bring a lot of baggage to school. And with that, we want to make sure that we are taking care of those social, emotional issues that they bring to the school, not just acknowledging it, but providing them with the strategies and supports to overcome it and not let that be what keeps them down. And then finally, family wraparound supports and services. We have an in-house family resource center on the premises of the I Promise School, and our families are able to come get support with Ohio Department of Jobs and Family Services, the Akron Food Bank. We have a food pantry at the school. We have community legal aid, Northeast Ohio eye surgeons, faithful servants. And something that's really exciting about what we have in our Family Resource Center is we have a partnership with Project Learn, and our families are able to learn right alongside of our students and earn their GEDs if they don't have it. So that's really, truly exciting. And, you know, it's no judgment. You know, we all have areas that we can improve upon in order to best meet the needs of our students. And our families are able to come in and get whatever support that they need, how often as they need it. And again, it's no judgment at all. So again, those 3 components, we feel that's our secret sauce to a successful urban public school setting.
I love it. So how are students able to become a part of the school, or what is the selection process criteria?
So the I Promise School is an Akron public school, and it's a random selection lottery process. So students who are typically struggling in reading are placed into a lottery, and that lottery is done by someone we bring in from the state, an auditor. 20 slots are set aside for each cluster, and we have 6 clusters in the Akron Public School. And students are selected based on the fact that they are struggling in reading. And once those students are selected with that auditor present, then we contact the families, and we invite them to an orientation where we explain all of the wonderful things that we have going on at the I Promise School, and they just have to make that commitment that their students will stay with us from 3rd through the 8th grade. Okay. And all of our families who've come to our orientations have signed their students up for that long haul commitment and preparation for them to go back into our Akron Public School system, into our college and career high schools.
Okay. Now, how many students do you currently have enrolled?
At the end of this inaugural year, we had 224 students enrolled. So with our incoming 3rd grade class for this coming up school year, we will add an additional 120. So our second year, we'll have students in grades 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade.
Okay. And if you are just tuning in, we are talking to Brandi Davis, who is the principal of the I Promise School by our very own LeBron James, and we are talking about a promise kept. So let's go back to just talking a little bit more about this school. What are some of the misconceptions that people may have about this school?
Oftentimes people think that the I Promise School is a private or a charter school, and it is not. It is a fully functioning Akron public school. We are considered a specialty school, very similar to STEM Middle and STEM High School and Miller South. And it's just that we have a unique and non-traditional approach to our school, our school day, and our curriculum. And that's oftentimes what a lot of people think. Oh, you're that LeBron school. It's a public or it's a private school. It's a charter school, and we're not.
And what's your typical day look like?
It's a very unique day. Our school day is 9 to 5, and the instructional day is 9 to 4, and students from 4 to 5 participate in an illumination period. And during that time, students are able to participate in extracurricular activities, clubs such as golf, robotics, STEM for girls, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, etc. But I think what really makes us so unique is that we were very intentional with ensuring that our students receive that trauma supportive services. So embedded in our school day, our students come in with welcomes, high fives, hugs and hellos, music playing. We want them to know that they're loved, that they're needed, and that they matter. So our students get their breakfast, and they eat breakfast in the classroom with their classroom teachers and peers. And this is just to promote that we are family philosophy, and that sense of relationship and rapport, and to build that. So after the students eat breakfast, they do an I Promise circle. And during that circle time, they listen to a song and they reflect on the lyrics, and they think about how they can be the best versions of themselves each day. And also infused in that is what we call our core beliefs, our core habits, our habits of promise. And our habits of promise are perseverance, partner, perspective, problem solver, and perpetual learner. So those 5 habits are infused not only in our academics, but in our emotional well-being daily. So students during that circle time, they think about how they can be the best partner, the best perpetual learner, the best problem solver. So we're trying to instill that intrinsic motivation and that integrity in our students so that you don't always need an adult there. We don't want to just create academic scholars, but we want to send global citizens out into the community and prepare to conquer the world.
Global citizens. Okay, so with that, you've had your first full year. Tell me, what were some of the challenges? What were your outcomes? Were you able to reach your goals and your metrics that you had set and established for this year?
So I'll say that the biggest challenge was trying to get it right. I'm referring to our master schedule. I changed our master schedule 3 times. Okay. And when I say I don't want to take all of the credit, because I have a wonderful leadership team sitting at the table, and we meet weekly just to talk about, what's working, what's not. We problem solve. And our word for the year was flexibility and being able to adjust on the fly. So looking at the components of our master schedule, something that I was really excited about that worked well was our small flexible reading groups. So something that I incorporated into the master schedule was 90 minutes of intensive reading group time. So again, we have our struggling readers. How can we be more prescriptive and diagnostic to not just differentiate the learning, but to individualize the learning for our students? So our class sizes are no larger than 20. So in these 90-minute flexible groups, our class sizes are reduced to 10, maybe 11 students. So teachers are able to really look at not just the reading levels of the students, but really see what they're struggling in. Are they struggling in blends? Are they struggling in comprehension? Or, are they struggling in fluency? So really looking at how our students are initially reading and what they need to do in order to fill in the gaps and get them to where they need to be. So those reading groups are given at that student's level, and then when they go back to their regular classroom, in a sense, with all 20 students, they are able to access that grade level curriculum. So with those changes and with that intensive individualized support, we initially thought that our growth was going to be 75%. But after the spring administration of our MAP, it's a district MAP assessment, measures of adequate progress, our students scored in the 90th percentile for growth. So that was tremendous, in and of itself. I knew we were going to see growth, but that much it was huge. It was overwhelming. And, are we where we want to be? Absolutely not, because there is a difference between growth and achievement. And so we're looking at really digging deeper next year into looking at how we can, beef up that rigor so that our students' achievement scores can soar just as well as their growth.
Awesome. All right. So, you just answered about the scores.
Check.
So how do you build and develop leadership in your staff?
I often tell my staff, I was not a 3rd, 4th, or 5th grade teacher. I was a 9th grade teacher. So they're the experts. And we've been fortunate because we were able to interview every single staff member in our school. So we wanted nothing but the best to sit in front of our students. So that is half the battle right there. So you have a team, a dynamic team of passionate, compassionate, academic leaders in a school, and they all have the same mindset. That in and of itself is huge. So what I do, I meet with my teachers monthly, and we look at their professional growth plan that they start at the beginning of the year, and we talk about what are some areas that you want to improve upon, what are some areas that you want to focus on for this upcoming school year. So my assistant principal, Jeff Lysick, and I, we continue to push our teachers to the limit. Mediocrity and the status quo are unacceptable in our school. So we have developed a team of teacher leaders, and I don't even want to say a team, it's all of them that we can call on to do professional development. This past year, we've done professional development every Wednesday with our teachers, in addition to our instructional improvement days throughout the year. And very rarely will you see me or Jeff standing in front of the staff. It's the staff standing in front of each other, providing that intensive, focused professional development, because they're the ones who are using it, living and breathing it in their classrooms, and they are the ones who matter.
Awesome. So more and more schools are becoming community centers. What does that mean, and how does that pertain to you?
So looking at our 3 foundational principles, our last one is that we are family wraparound support services. The school community is only as strong as its school. So being that community hub of support for our families is tremendous. How can our families come in and have that one-stop shop where we're removing barriers for them to get the support that they need, whether it's academically, whether it's with, getting supports from the state or the county. We've tried to remove those barriers and develop those partnerships with our community partners to bring them into the school so that our families can drop their kid off and then go down the Family Resource Center wing to get whatever it is that they need. That is what is so dynamic about our school and any other school that brings in that community resource piece. And I know there are 2 schools in Akron, East High School, as well as the Bookdale Cluster. They are working on getting the Family Resource Centers embedded in their schools as well. So, that is something that our families, if they don't need it, it's there for them if they do happen to need it.
Get up and need it. Awesome. So we already talked about some of your challenges. How do you handle disciplinary issues?
So with us being a trauma supportive school, we look at restorative practices. We want to ensure that our students know and understand. We do zones of regulation where students are able to articulate their emotions. You'll see kids and, they ball up their fists and they're grunting, they're upset and angry, but sometimes they can't articulate how they feel. So, with that social emotional learning curriculum, we're teaching our students, this is, these tying words to their emotions, and then giving them strategies that they need in order to get out of what we call the red zone. And it's very beneficial for adults too. And then trying to establish and create those self-regulating behaviors with our students, and not always having someone there, because when they become adults, you're not always going to have mommy and daddy and Miss Davis there to bring you out of that red zone. So it's acknowledging that it's okay to be angry, because as adults we get angry, but we need to sit down and figure it out, and that's where the restorative circles come in. Just like any school, we have disagreements, we have issues, but we sit down and we talk it through. And 9 times out of 10, it's a lack of communication. So, if a student encounters that issue again, we try to give them those tools to put in their toolkit, so that, okay, so I'm going to think first and, think twice and act once. That's often what I say to the students. And, how can we have made that situation better? I mean, it's been wonderful being able to sit down with students and have them reflect on their actions. And, hopefully, they don't come back to the office because they've used those strategies. And, we look at logical consequences as well. If a student, doesn't clean up after himself or herself in the restroom, it's not about giving it attention. You're going to go clean that restroom, and it's just about, does the consequence match what the infraction was? So that's, and we, again, what's real, what makes sense to the students. So that's something that we definitely are pushing, is that restorative practices.
And I agree with that, because a lot of times you hear that students are just behaviorally challenged, they're just bad. And oftentimes it's just that they haven't been taught how to really convey their emotions, like you said. So if you are going to be, not if you are, when you are finally moving on to your next chapter and you have to leave your fingerprints at this school, what would you want those to be reflective of?
I would say the development of teacher leaders, the love, compassion, and support of not only our kids, but our families as well as each other, acknowledging one another's strengths and also holding each other accountable. That is something that I want to ensure remains a constant at the I Promise School, and that flexibility, and not becoming complacent. That, every year there's an opportunity for growth and improvement, not just every year, every day, and being able to acknowledge that and continue to move forward for the success of our kids. So just that mindset is something that I want to leave with the students, staff, and family.
Amazing. Okay, and then tell me real quick, we hear about these shoes. Tell me about the shoes.
Okay, so it had to be a couple years ago. Lebron was honoring his heroes in the community. So it was right before he was going to announce his LeBron 12s. So he had 12 heroes. So surprisingly, I was one of LeBron's heroes in the area of education. I was able to, talk about, what my leadership and educational drives were, and even ask a few personal questions as my favorite color. And I had a shoe designed in my name. So I actually have, they're called Brandi Davis 12s. And there were only 2 created, one for me and one for LeBron. And I was on social media one day, and he had a post and it said, "Kick Game Cray." And he had on those Brandi Davis 12s. And that was just so exciting to see that, just someone like me who is just, working along, trying to make an impact in my community, is acknowledged on such a higher scale and higher level, to have a pair of shoes in my name.
Awesome. All right. Well, we want to thank Miss Brandi Davis for coming in and talking to us. I know you have a hectic schedule.
Thank you.
So thank you again for tuning in to Forum 360, where we have a global outlook from a local view. I'm your host, Leah Love. Have a great week.
Forum 360 is brought to you by John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, the Akron Community Foundation, Hudson Community Television, the Rubber City Radio Group, Shaw Jewish Community Center of Akron, Blue Green, Electric Impulse Communications, and Forum 360 supporters.